Today I'm going to show you guys how to put the classic pre-CBS Fender Strat contours on this guitar. Hey everybody, this is Matt. Thanks for joining us for part 2 of our series of building the replica of a replica of a replica. Here is the ash body that we worked on in the previous video. And today I'm going to do the stuff that I think you guys all want to see. And that's where we put the comfort contours on and the roundovers and make everything on this look like this. And this is the one from Steve at Maximum Guitar Works. And this is the one that I've been doing the old school way. And I'm gonna walk you guys through how we do it. I'm going to show you some cool tools that you had to have had if you were at the Fender factory back in the 50s, and we got them and you've never seen me use them before. It's kind of a brand new thing that I did specifically for this video. So just like Norm Abrams, I'm going to show you tools that you don't have. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do is we are going to enlarge this cavity right here for the jack, and there is a little wiring race that we're going to put right here. We are also going to clean up the area on the south side of the neck pocket, and we are going to remove the off-body alignment pin holes, and then the really cool stuff is going to start. So let's do all those things one at a time. Oh yeah, enough of the bullshit talk. Let's start turning wood into sawdust. All right, so you can see on Steve's body, this football jack cup, or plate, or whatever it's called, just sort of fits down on it perfect. On the one that we have with the original template, it's got a little bit of wobble. And that's not necessarily the fault of these templates, because some jack cups, not all jack cups are created equal. So this one I believe to be a reproduction, probably one made in the Orient, and I think the genuine article Fender ones fit pretty well. But rather than wrestle with it and try to make sure that I always have the right jack cups, what we're going to do is we're going to enlarge this template to this size. And I am going to take the advice of a viewer, and I'm actually going to use Steve's replica body to modify Steve's Strat template with this, and then I'm going to put the same contours on our guitar. And of course, I'm going to use the pin router to do that. So I'm going to double stick tape my template to my guitar, which is actually the template for the template, if that makes any sense. And I'm going to, what I really want to do is I really just want to get the size right. I'm not 100% worried about lining every single possible thing up. I don't want to take more than I need to, so I'm going to call that good. I'm going to go to my pin router where I have a flush trim bit with the bearing on the bottom. I'm going to plunge it into here, and I'm going to buzz this this part of the template out. Sound good? Okay, now before I embiggen my output jack, football jack thing, on the body that we are making, I want to add this little channel here, and I've got my pin router set up with a ball cutter, and we are going to see how close we can come to this using the old school way. After we do that, then we're going to put the template back on, and we are going to we're going to make this guy a little larger. Okay, I've got my template on my guitar body, and I've got a 1/2" pin in my pin router, and I have a 3/8 ball cutter, and I'm going to go in just in the half of this slot right here, and then straight down to the main control cavity. got that little guy done. Now I'm going to enlarge my jack recess here, and I think we'll be done with the templates. All right, so I have enlarged the jack hole, and now, as you can see, that fits in there exactly perfectly right, no wiggling about. And I have even added this little guy right here, just like on Steve's. So now what I have to do is cut off my off-body alignment pins and trim back this, like I said, the south end of the neck pocket, and make that fit a neck. And I've got some cool ideas, some cool techniques to show you guys for that. And of course, I'm going to use my Japanese saw to cut all that stuff. No, I'm not. I'm going to add power. I'm going to go to the bandsaw and I'm going to trim this stuff off. Then I'm going to grind it down with my spindle sander, and I'm going to use my router table and show you guys the best way to make this fit perfectly. Body alignment pins are ground off and everything's looking good. I trimmed off a little bit of this excess meat here, and now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to come into, what do you say, right about here, and I'm going to trim down to the actual neck pocket. And all of this stuff is going to go away. And when I put a neck in here, you will notice that I now have a template for a top bearing router bit to follow that will trim off all of this stuff for me. And that's what we're going to do next. That's it. Oh, you still going?
Yep.
Now that I've got this exactly perfect, I'm going to sand this little piece right here, and I'm also going to put my roundover on the end of the neck pocket, and we'll do that on the spindle sander. So when you're doing anything with the spindle sander, whether it's removing the off-body alignment pin holes or truing up this lower cutaway, you need to constantly be checking, constantly be feeling, and make sure that everything is done correctly, because the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to put the 1/2 inch roundover on here, and if we don't have everything done right, the 1/2 inch roundover is going to look wrong. So when you're doing it, go slow. Watch where you're going, go where you're watching, and check often, and you won't be let down. Okay, cool? All right, let's go and put the 1/2 inch roundover on this, and then we'll start the serious shaping. All right, I always like to start with the top first because, well, one thing, it's more fun, and I don't have to remember to stop before I get to the area where the plate is going to go. So what we want to remember to do is stop before our cutter starts to encroach into the area where the plate, the 4-bolt neck plate is going to go. So we're actually going to start probably right about here and come all the way around and end right about here, and we'll make that transition by hand later on. I just noticed this body says Chris on it. That must mean that Chris is approving of what we're doing so far. And he wants to make this one his own. So that's a good sign, you guys. All right, so now it's time to do our forearm contour and our tummy cut. And we're going to go back into the workshop and draw some stuff on here before we get started with that. All right, so if we look at Steve's template set, we can see that his contour actually comes pretty close to matching the line on this guy. So we're going to start with that. And we are probably going to modify as needed and try to match his. And we'll start to do that with when we start sanding this guy back. But this is just going to give us an idea of where we want to go. Okay, so this line here is on Steve's template there. So we're going to cut that out and grind to it. And we are also going to look at Steve's template for the back here. And it is actually pretty close. So we're going to lay this dude on here. And again, we're going to use it as best we can. But I think we're going to not quite come all the way down to this, all the way with the cutting tool. We're going to come down as close as we need to, or as deep as we need to, with the sanding tool that I'm going to show you guys. You'll notice that I said cutting and sanding. If we cut this chunk away as best we can, and cut this chunk away as best we can, and turn it into one big piece of material that gets removed rather than thousands of little tiny particles of sawdust, it's much easier to clean up, okay? So we're going to use the big bandsaw to do most of this, and we're going to use this sled that Chris and I built a little while ago, and we're going to remove the forearm contour and the tummy contour. Like I said, a big chunk of it on the bandsaw, and then we're going to sand to the line and make it look like we want it to look. All right, so we are going to position the body on our sled here. We're actually going to do the forearm contour first. I like to have the line be about level with the table. And then we are going to clamp it on here. We're going to clamp it, Jed. I should get the clamps going the right way, huh, Chris? Okay, so this is going to be our first cut. I'm actually going to go a little bit under that line so that I can sand to it. So as you guys can see, I didn't go all the way to my line there, and I still took a big chunk of the body off. And we can always take more off on the sander. All right, now let's go and do our tummy cut. All right, we're going to be using our deadhead sander to establish this, get everything nice and flat. We're also going to kind of roll everything over. Now, on the original Strats, people might think this is exactly flat, but it's actually a little bit convex, so we're going to impart that as well. All right, so we've got our forearm contour roughed in with 36 grit paper. Seems pretty good to me. Now it's time to work on the tummy cut. And for that, we're going to use the Grizzly dual drum sander. These are actually inflatable bladders that have sandpaper on them, just like they use at the Fender Custom Shop today, exactly like they used, well, something like what they used back in the old days at Fender. And this tool makes this job really, really easy. Okay, gang, it is the next day. Chris and I had to stop what we were doing to get ready for a reveal video yesterday, but it's time to pick this one back up and finish up our contouring. As you will no doubt recall, because you just watched it a few seconds ago, we were using the inflatable drum sander and the deadhead sander to work out our forearm contour and our tummy cut, and I think we got it pretty good. Now what we have to do is we have to continue this roundover onto this now very sharp edge left by cutting and sanding and scraping. And of course, I'm going to use the good old-fashioned Amazon special rasp. I've got the body that we're kind of copying here right next to it, so I'm going to work through and let's jump right in. All right, that looks pretty good, guys. It would have gone a little better had I clamped my piece down to the workbench, but I kind of like to move my rasp around and get in there. I like to use the flat side of the rasp and the curved side of the rasp, you know, depending on what part we're working on, and try to not go too far with your rasp because, of course, we've got lots and lots of sanding to do. And the sandpaper is going to make short work of this stuff as well without leaving scratches from the rasp. Okay, speaking of sanding, it's about time to start sanding this. Now this is really soft wood. Of course, swamp ash always is very soft. So I'm not going to start with 60 or 80. I'm actually going to start with 100 and go to 120, 150, 180, and 220. And I think this will be really good. Now, I suspect a couple of things. One, swamp ash is not used on Strats as much. It was discontinued in favor of alder because the way that this grain is. You've got a hard patch and a soft patch, and it's real easy to get kind of a bumpy feel across some of these. This guy's pretty straightforward. This guy, not so much. So we'll have to chase that by hand with blocks and stuff if we want to get it super smooth. But we're going to start with the orbital and see where it takes us. I'm really liking this, you guys, so let's get sanding. So that got the big flat spots pretty good. Now we're gonna run with the same exact piece that we were using on the orbital, but we're gonna run it with a block to get the edges all the way around. All right, we got it sanded to 100, and there's only 1, 2, 3, 4 more grits to go before this guy will be ready for some finish. So now it's time for every guitar builder's favorite part, sanding. So let's get started. All right, I think that's quite enough sanding for me for one day. I've taken this body all the way down to 220, and I even kind of went over it with some Scotch-Brite. That's something I just do. I don't know why. You probably don't need to. Some guys back in the old school days use steel wool. I don't like to use steel wool because it can get little bits of metal in the wood, but I do like to use Scotch-Brite every so often, and this was one time that I did. I also took some 220, just a tiny bit, and went around the inside edges of like the pickup routes and the control cavity, trim route and things like that. Because I don't know, I think that it's not a bad idea. Anytime you have a hard angle and you're going to put finish on it, that's a place where finish doesn't like to go. Anytime there's a real, imagine like a real crisp 90, finish doesn't like to get on there. So I just broke that corner off basically. Hardly noticeable, but very noticeable. So speaking of noticeable, one of the things that you guys will probably notice is that there's no way to do this exactly the same every time. Now, if you were working at Fender back in the 50s and you were using all the same old school tools that I used to make this body, you'd probably get really good at it, and you'd probably get reasonably consistent. And that's one of the neat things about the vintage Fender guitars, and really the vintage any guitars, is they're all a little bit unique. They're not all 100%, let me borrow a word from my food videos, homogeneous. And that's kind of what people like about them. So depending on who shaped your body and what day they did it and how hungover they were from the night before, your body might have a lot of contouring or it might have very little. And that's just kind of the way it goes. So, and you talk to any vintage Fender guy or talk to any of the guys who work in the Fender custom shop, they'll tell you that that's kind of the way it is. And thanks to modern CNC technology, we can replicate the same guitar over and over and over again. Doesn't matter how hungover the CNC machine is, stuff like that. But I still had a really good time making this. All right, now let's take a look at this guitar and the one that Steve brought over and see how close I came to replicating a replica of a replica. So obviously there are some differences. One, the biggest one actually is going to be that I used swamp ash for my body and Steve used alder for his. You can see his forearm contour doesn't quite go as far forward as mine does, but that's okay. I think I'm actually very happy with mine. You'll notice that his contour goes almost to the halfway mark So does mine. Here's the center line of the guitar, almost to the halfway mark here. Of course, we have, you guys remember from the previous video, all of the contours and all of the control routes and everything are as close as I could get to Steve's. Let's have a look at the back here. Again, you'll notice that they're very, very close. Steve's tummy cut comes about 1 1/8 from the edge of the trim route, and you'll notice that mine does too. Just kind of eyeballing this, it looks pretty good. One area where I went a little bit crazy, you'll notice that Steve has kind of a thicker patch right here than I do. I have a very, very small, almost knife edge right there, which I very much dig, and it's a lot like my friend Jim's actual real-life vintage 57 ash body Strat. So that's what I think. I'd like to know what you guys think. How close do you think I came to replicating the Steve's replica of a replica? How close do you reckon I came to replicating Steve's? Like I said, there's some areas where it's actually very visually different. This is the biggest spot where you would, if you looked at one and the other, you'd go, ah, this is a little bit different. Of course, this one's ash too rather than alder. But I sure had a good time doing it. I love this body, and I'm looking forward to finishing it out, as well as finishing out the one, let me get back here, the one that Steve made. These are both really, really cool guitars. If you guys would like to come to my shop and you would like to try your hand at building a Strat, say, with out of just a chunk of wood and the old school tools, you should definitely consider signing up for one of our Build a Classic Fender workshops. If you don't have any interest in doing that, I urge you to check out Steve at Maximum Guitar Works, or maybe even check out one of the new workshops that we're going to be doing with Steve, where you can spec your body and have his CNC machine do it, and it will be perfect every time. Like, for example, some people might think that, you know what, this is too much of a project for me. I don't think I could do this, but I would really like to have one of those guitars, and so we've got you covered. If you want to build a Strat style instrument out here at Texas Toast Guitars, we've got you covered. So let's see. I'd like to thank Steve at Maximum Guitar Works for bringing me some of those bodies. I'd like to thank my good buddy Doug, who said, hey Matt, I think you should try to do this video where you replicate Steve's guitar. And that was a great idea, Doug, and here is the result. Again, some of you guys might go, well, it's not really truly a replica. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Who owes the other guy lunch? Do I owe Doug, or does Doug owe me? That's what we're really getting it down to, the nitty gritty. Either way, I'm having a super good time with this little guitar, and I hope that you guys liked it too. If you did like this video, give me the thumbs up. If you haven't clicked the subscribe button yet, please do so. We are doing neat stuff like this all the time. If you appreciate the content that we put out, you might want to consider joining us on YouTube. Just click the little join button, or going over to our Patreon page. And even $1 a month, guys, goes a long way to helping us bring you guys neat stuff like this. But if you can't do Patreon, or don't want to join the YouTube channel, we totally get it. There's no paywall for these videos. Just like the video, share the video everywhere you can, and help us grow our channel that way. Speaking of our channel, speaking of a new video idea, what would you guys think if we actually did a replica of an actual 1957 Strat? Jimmy, my good buddy, your good buddy, he's got one, and I was talking to him last night, and he said, let's just mic my 57, do everything the old school way, and see how close we can get to the actual genuine article. So we'd be making a replica of an actual vintage 1957 Strat. I think that'd be cool. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. All right, gang, so this is Matt at Texas Toast, reminding you that life is short. You might as well have a cool guitar. And if you're so smart, start your own YouTube channel. That's what I did. We will see you next time. Have a great one, you guys. Take care, everybody.